All right, we are back at Academy of Art University, the finals.
It's the final match, guys. We have it is an Elise versus Elise match. The players are Persin and YouJohneh. And Persin again going with that flash as we've always seen him do, and same with YouJohneh picking up that barrier. How do you think that's going to affect this fight?
It's going to be interesting because Persin has, just pushed his way through the tournament with aggressive gameplay, and YouJohneh has survived all the brackets of the tournament with defensive play. So both of them are going to be in their elements. It's going to be like an unstoppable force versus an immovable object. And what's great about this is that we've seen an Elise battle before, and a lot of times we talk about the fine minute mechanics of each skill when two summoners have to fight each other in a rare match. But we're dealing with 6 abilities, right? She has spider form and human form. Generally, summoners, if this is a new champion and this isn't a champion that they've never really played on a regular basis, the learning curve for Elise can be pretty steep if you haven't read the entire paragraph for her skills.
I think this is going to be similar to the Lee Sin match in this regard, because Lee Sin also having those 2 activations of his skills, and so Lee Sin also having those 2 activations of his skills, and it's 3 additional abilities that each player needs to remember for this fight. And we're seeing for starting items we have the flask and potions for YouJohneh, while it's a magic armor and more health pots for Persin. So going a little bit defensive for Persin here.
And it's interesting because Persin is really aggressive, and I feel like he picks the defensive items to counterbalance his play style. And YouJohneh generally picks more of like offensive items. We've seen him pick a Doran's Blade a couple times, and he plays more defensive. So it feels like when the items they build are to balance their play style. And so they have a good understanding of their habits and what they can buy or what masteries to select to kind of patch over their weak spots. If you're a very aggressive player, generally you overextend, and so if you build movement speed runes, you can escape quickly. They kind of know the choices they're making, and they're picking things accordingly, and you can see both players doing so right now. And what's going to be interesting about these matchups is that generally before we see that it comes down to the combo. Do you start with Q or W? If you're starting with Elise's W, that's going to be advantageous on the volatile spiderling, which is an explosive homing kind of missile that crawls. And if you start going with Q, neurotoxin, which is kind of like a poke right there, you can see that neurotoxin Q, is a lot more advantageous in the Venomous Bite, which is a spider form. So if you do Q, you're going to see more spider form action. If you're going with W, you're going to see more human form action. And if you're using the W, you're going to end up going with that snare, and then quickly changing and following it with the Q. So W and Q is where all this damage is going to be happening, and you're just going to have to see if players prefer to lead with a Q or if they prefer to lead with the E. Because if you lead with an E, that means you can close the distance, and when they try to escape, you can lock them down really quick.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting how these players are going to be utilizing their cocoon and their repel so they can both engage and disengage. As we saw with our last Elise match, it was we had a very interesting engage coming out from, I believe it was Lag Spike who took that match, and he had a very interesting engage with that. He ended up starting with spider form and just running into melee range, attacking, and right when his opponent tried to run away from him,
landed from YouJohneh. You see the W-Q combo. It feels like YouJohneh is favoring this human form engagement right now.
Yes, that was. I think that's a lot of what we're going to be seeing here is starting off with the cocoon and just following it up with either spider form or that W neurotoxin.
Now look at Persin. This is a great move by him. He's chosen spider form. He's taking a little bit of harass from YouJohneh. He's now turning on with cocoon, W, and bringing YouJohneh almost to equal health as himself. But Persin changed the spider form to get the spiderlings to farm, and he could kind of stay out of range of YouJohneh. So you could really see that Persin has a great understanding of the mechanics, like, using the spiderlings in more than just auto-attacking when he's auto-attacking. He's actually using them as little minions to go farm for him while he could stay at a safe range. And Persin is a little bit lower right now. YouJohneh does have more lane sustain as he picked the lane sustain build. Persin is so far displaying a great mastery of skills. I feel that when YouJohneh decides to engage, it may actually be at the time where Persin wants him to engage on him, and he's going to turn around and get that, perhaps a cocoon under the turret, which is something YouJohneh really doesn't want to do. He could easily get baited into it. And another thing is, Elise's repel has been changed in the latest patch, and so it's going to be very interesting. You see that snare in the combo again. YouJohneh doesn't quite get the Q follow. It would have brought Persin very low at that moment. And as I was saying earlier, her repel can get you out of range if there's an enemy minion nearby, but if there isn't, you're repelling right back under turret range. So it's going to be very tricky. If I've done it myself before, you repel away and you don't quite get out of range, and you end up giving them a kill anyway. So it's going to be very interesting when they pop the repel, when they pop the cocoon. Something also to note is that when you release your volatile spiderling, you can transform into the spider form, and when you Q, all your spiderlings fly with you, and the volatile spiderling will follow as well. So you can actually send it off the minion waves and then bring it back on. What it does is it almost shaves off like a second and a half for the cooldown.
And we see Persin right there taking advantage of that repel to save a little bit of damage on his tower, because YouJohneh pushed all the way to Persin's turret before recalling, so he's got a little bit of advantage on tower damage there. I don't expect this to be a matchup that would go to the tower kill. It's still a possibility if both these players decide to play fairly passively, which YouJohneh, I could see him potentially doing that, but Persin is a very aggressive player, so I can see...
Persin would not allow YouJohneh to play passively. But what's interesting is that Elise can siege towers very quickly with her spiderlings.
Yes, they're great for doing damage to towers, so that cocoon unfortunately just missing there.
And lands a great cocoon and does land the Q as well. You can see once you get it's one to get the cocoon and then the volatile and then the neurotoxin follow up. That 1-2-3 combo is very solid. But as soon as you land the venomous bite, the spider form version of the Q, you start seeing a lot of health getting chunked out there. That's when you know you're in trouble, when you see that shift from human form to spider form. That's when Parasite's really turning on the heat.
Yeah, this is gonna. YouJohneh's gonna have to play this definitely very carefully. He does have the sustain to stay in lane after taking a few of these hits from Persin, but there's not much he can do if he runs out of sustain and he's just still taking those hits. But YouJohneh chose to go with a health-based build, getting that Ruby Crystal, while Persin chose the Magic Mantle for magic resistance instead. I'll be interested to see what they build this into.
Right, and so health versus magic resist, which is the better choice?
At this moment, I think it's kind of difficult to say. There's a little bit of an engagement there.
And a double Q from YouJohneh and Persin, and it looks like Persin thought about going in with the repel, decided not to. He does have his flash to get out of range, but it looks like a good return from YouJohneh, getting a volatile spiderling and a neurotoxin on him, keeping them about equal health. Their mana is also very close as well. They both need to pop pots right now.
Yeah, and YouJohneh, however, is now out of both his flash charges and all of his potions, so...
Oh, and a great cocoon, and Persin is going to capitalize on that. The barrier comes out, but it melts very quickly, and it looks like YouJohneh turns around and gets the Q. Persin has slain YouJohneh, but it was too late, because YouJohneh slips the Q in as that repel comes down, and again, steals the victory from Persin. Persin had it and repelled away. If he was in the air for a few seconds longer, he would have ticked away from the ignite.
That was a fantastic play from YouJohneh, waiting for just a split second between when Persin landed down from that repel and when he was able to start moving and doing damage again to land that Q and secure the kill before the ignite ticks finished him. And it was extremely well played by both players, but YouJohneh being the one to take it in the end with just that fantastic play there.
YouJohneh popped the barrier and it was melted almost instantly, but what that means is that it absorbed an entire skill. And so of Elise's combos, you need to land every single skill to pick up the kill. And just the fact that he stopped a large portion of the damage for, I'm going to say, perhaps the volatile spiderling, or the Q, the jump on it from
Venomous Bite.
from Persin, and then the repel. That's what allowed him the time. And you can see when we talk about it comes down to slivers of health, it really does. It came down to the last tick. And what's great is that you can tell that wasn't luck because YouJohneh sat there and waited in human form, switched to Spider, and as soon as it touched the ground, YouJohneh jumped on it.
Yeah, and it was really well. The timing was just perfect for YouJohneh, and using that barrier that Persin did not have. He used his flash instead, which helped him with that engagement, but it didn't give him the survivability that YouJohneh had with that barrier. So he was not able to use it to take a hit or to escape because he used it when he initiated, and because of that, it was YouJohneh who was able to take the kill.
And see, it seems that the flash works for Persin when he's taking advantage of someone's misstep. And if he's flashing in to engage, it's not going to work out in the favor. We've seen that pattern throughout. When people flash in for the engage, it's almost a waste because it's almost better to use that when you have a good position already and then flash to do something dynamic as opposed to flashing so that you're in position. And what's great about barrier is that YouJohneh was on it, using barrier at the right time to clutch a certain event, whether that was to block auto attacks or to block a spell or to bait someone under the tower so they take a couple hits. So it came down to summoner spells. Very important picks. It decides games right now. We talked a lot about, is it the lane sustain game? We talked a lot about, is it your masteries or your runes? It comes down to your summoner spells.
That was really what decided it here, and it was the barrier. It simply proved to be more useful for YouJohneh than the flash did for Persin. Maybe if Persin had timed the flash a little better, maybe if he had saved it to escape rather than use it to initiate, if he had used that repel and escape before YouJohneh with that flash, before YouJohneh had a chance to use that Venomous Bite and get the kill, he might have been able to get it first with that Ignite tick, but in the end,
it was very close. You have to give it up for both of the summoners here. Persin really executed, throughout the whole game. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he landed his hits. YouJohneh was very passive and reactive, but he weathered the storm, and he did a great job of responding to a lot of picks that he wasn't used to, and to a lot of playstyles that he hasn't been used to as well. So both players did an extremely good job. I bet if we were to play this game again in the exact same way, the game easily could have gone to Persin. It was very small difference in who was going to take that.
Definitely. It was an extremely close game. This whole tournament was well played by both players, especially well played by YouJohneh, taking the finals match, so congratulations to him. We will be back sometime within the month with another tournament, another 1v1 tournament. Not sure when that is. If you want to follow my channel or my Twitter, I will post when that tournament will be, so if you're interested in watching this again, you will get a notification.
Other notes, you can also send us a message. You can send it to Gambitix, a personal message on Twitch. If you have any questions or comments, if you have any helpful tips to help us improve the stream, we would also greatly appreciate that. We are looking to expanding our audience, our community, and our capabilities. So any helps or tips would be great. If you also want to donate perhaps any skins or codes to help entice more players to come. If you're in the local Bay Area, we are based in San Francisco, so if you're a local viewer, you can also PM us and we give you the address. You can actually come out and spectate on scene as well. So please don't hesitate to send us a message on Twitch. We are going to read them, and we do plan on broadcasting again, hopefully sooner than later, but you'll hear again from Old Man Dan and Spaz Rocker.
Definitely, and with that is the end of the night for us, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.